The Other Sides continues with a new installment of my summer series. The world of acting is the topic this week. I'm discussing how I was drawn into the art of acting, as well as what keeps me from fully immersing myself in the art. Real transparency and a few revelations are revealed through this continued chapter of Coleman on Purpose, which begins right now. Welcome to Coleman on Purpose. This is David J. Coleman here to start the third part of my summer series, The Other Sides. And I'm so thankful that you guys have come back to listen to another chapter or the third part of this chapter of my series. It's been a great time doing each one of these with you. And as I do them more, the more I start to see things around me start to shift, which I love about this. Is that's why I love podcasting so much, is because I get a chance to talk things out and then actually come to what we're here for, what the purpose of this podcast was, my purpose. So it's amazing. And I hope that every single day you guys are finding your purpose in life or journeying towards ways to get there even more. So The Other Side is starting with my acting side of me, the acting part of my life. Now I've talked about my singing, I've talked about my writing, and now it's time to come to the acting side of all of this. So let me name a few people and see if those people sound familiar, which they should. Sidney Poitier, Cary Grant, Whoopi Goldberg, Meryl Streep, Will Smith, Tom Hanks, Viola Davis, Emma Stone, Denzel Washington, and Liam Neeson. That's just to name several of my favorite actors or people that I've gotten to see act as I've grown and I've become an adult, people that I'm always drawn towards. I can definitely remember watching one of Sidney Poitier's movies or just watching him just look at the camera and just command it. And I love that about him. And then Cary Grant, another one, which many people don't really know why I love Cary Grant so much. It's just something about his movies that I've always enjoyed. They're very old, but they're very action, and it's just he knows how to just draw you in through just his speech, through his voice. We got Whoopi Goldberg, who's always been very just a big part of my life, and she stands on what she says, and she's not afraid to apologize if she gets something wrong. I love Whoopi Goldberg. I love seeing her, and of course Sister Act and Sister Act 2 will always be my favorite movies, or Sister Act 2 more than one, but those will always be my favorites. Meryl Streep, we ain't even got to say any words. The Devil Wears Prada, that's one of my favorites from her. I know she has many other works, but that is definitely one of my favorites. Will Smith, always commanding the box office. I've enjoyed watching him, as well as Tom Hanks, which I've just watched these people grow so much. Tom Hanks, I don't even know if he plays a different character. I usually can't even tell that he's a different person, just as well as Will Smith. Viola Davis, enough said. We see her every single day. The Woman King, phenomenal movie. If you have not seen The Woman King, excellent movie. Emma Stone, I've watched her. La La Land, although you guys, all of that mishap they had at the Academy Awards, I loved the movie La La Land. A lot of people didn't understand it, but I loved it. The dreamers, the people that are out here hustle, I felt La La Land, and many people didn't. So anyway, Denzel Washington, enough said there again. These are people that you always hear. And Liam Neeson, for some reason, he doesn't have to even say much, but everything, his movies are all good. I don't see a bad Liam Neeson movie. He is a great actor to me. And that's just as well as Tom Cruise, even though I didn't mention him in here, he's another one where even though he's doing action, he just has a way of making you love the movie. So these were people that I have always watched and looked up to and just watch the command of the screen. And these are just movie people, just naming movie people, which I watch a lot of TV also. So I just wanted to give you a synopsis of the people that I enjoy to watch. But I do remember my first time actually falling in love with acting in movies was actually through child stars. Now, child stars were a lot bigger in the 90s. We had so many amazing movies that came out, many breakout childhood actors that I watched during that time. We had Elijah Wood, Anna Klumsky, though they were in big movies. And Home Alone was one of the first movies that I actually saw. And I just watched a child that was around my age command the screen. He was able to make people laugh, cry, just feel free. You know, it was a very free movie, even though he was very outspoken and he talked back a lot, which my parents didn't like. They like, if you ever tried that to talk back like Macaulay Culkin did, that's not happening in this household. So he was always one that I always like watched. And so these were some of the people that I looked at, even though I was in church. And the only real things I remember about performing before seeing like Home Alone was like performing on a stage for like a Christmas play or doing something like that. And I really didn't fall in love with it until I saw movies like this. And I also watched television. So you had people like Jodie Sweetin, Keisha Knight Pulliam, Jaleel White, Raven Simone, Kelly Shaneen Williams. The list goes on and on and on. And these were all actors or actresses that I really was like, oh my gosh, these are child stars that are doing this. So I always had a hunger for doing it. And I would always ask my mom to like do different things or take me to plays or do other things or try to audition. I didn't really know what auditioning was back then, but I remember the first time I wanted to audition for anything, I was too young. I wanted to go out and audition for Sister Act 2. It came to St. Louis and they were auditioning teenagers to be in it. And at the time, I was only 10 years old. Imagine a 10-year-old like me back then in a movie with Lauryn Hill and all of those people back then. It wouldn't have worked. So I couldn't do it, but it was always something that I wanted to do so very bad, but I was too young. But that was the first time I remember like an audition. And so as I watched these shows and I watched these movies, I was like, this is something that I would really love to do. And so I would take some of my friends and I would force some of my friends who didn't probably even like to act. I would force them to act out scenes from movies. We would do the whole movie. Like I would remember all the scenes because I would have watched the movie very intently, like I always did back then. And I would say, okay, we're going to start the movie here. And then we had to play all the characters. So if it was all guys, somebody had to be the mom. So that was my make-believe. Somebody had to be the mom, the dad, all of those things. So that was like my make-believe at the time. Instead of like playing house or doing all the different things, I was like, let's act out a movie. So I was always interested in doing that. And that evolved later on to creating like radio drama and those things that I always wanted to do, but I didn't have a camcorder. I always wanted a camcorder, and camcorders were expensive back then. Like I just think about nowadays, we already hold cameras in our hands, but back then camcorders were very expensive, so I couldn't get one. So I had to do the next best thing, which was like my voice, like the acting through my voice and putting drama onto tape because I had a tape recorder. So I wanted to do things like that. So I just wanted to capture everything on film back then, but I just couldn't afford the camcorder. So I ended up wanting a talk boy. I remember watching Home Alone 2 and watching that talk boy, and I was like, oh, I have a tape recorder, but think about if I had a recording system that I could carry in my hand and like have people talk on it. I was just like so enamored by that, but my parents could not afford that. And then it wasn't until like years later, because that was a hot ticket item. You could not get that talk boy. I mean, that talk boy was like back then, I think like $100. That was a lot back then. Like $100 for a talk boy. I was not getting it. So I just remember wanting it so bad. And I got it years later, but that was after it started dying down in the popularity. So I do remember getting it. So before I left St. Louis, I ended up going to see a play that I remember to this day. It was called Subway to Eternity. I don't know what church did that back in St. Louis. I just don't remember, but I just remember loving that play. And I do believe that's the reason why, like I talked about in my writing series, if you get a chance to go back and listen to that, to the writing portion of this and the singing and all that I did before this, I talked about this play that I did called We've Been Left Behind. And that was kind of because of Subway to Eternity. It was a play where these people were riding on a subway and everybody has all these different problems. And the way they had the stage set up, it was not like a high budget play. I mean, they had a little backdrop, but it was basically the subway was like Fellowship Hall chairs. Now, if you know what a Fellowship Hall chair is, are those fold up chairs that were metal back then. But they were these chairs that they set on the stage, and everybody had all these different parts. So it was all these people, like you had drug dealers, you had all these different people that had all these different things, and then somebody was trying to witness on the subway train. Hence why I had the kids witnessing to people in my play as well. And I remember the train. Now it wasn't the rapture quite. It was just the train ended up crashing, and then the second half of the play they go to heaven, and basically they get to see like who gets into heaven and who does not. So again, these were the things that the church was going, and it was like you would have the people that were bad, they didn't get to go into heaven, and then the people, and then they pictured hell, like they had a whole thing of like what hell was like. It was a crazy, but that's what made me like run up to the altar again. I was already saved, but I was like, I need to run up to this altar again and get saved because this scary and I don't want to go to hell and all of those things. But it's something that I do remember because that was a play. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to make plays and do stuff like that. So I wanted to act and I wanted to do those things. And after we moved from St. Louis, we got to Ohio, and I really didn't do too much because I didn't have any friends yet. So I just remember little performances and stuff that we would have at our elementary school. I remember one particular one was called Cool Yule. I don't even know how I remember this stuff, you guys. My mind is just so like, I just remember things that made me happy at the time. And for some reason, that Christmas play, and I still do know the words to that song, but I am not going to embarrass myself and sing this sixth grade song to y'all. But it was a musical Christmas show called Cool Yule. And I just remember being so happy to be performing again and on a stage, even though it was a whole bunch of kids and I was not the star of the thing. I just was happy to be back and wanting to perform again. So I always wanted to be a performer, and I could tell that because I remember some of those things so vividly when I think back to those times when I was in, elementary, junior high, and then even going into high school. There was that little bug inside of me that still wanted to come out, and I just didn't know quite how I was going to express it through all the different things that I wanted to do with myself at the time. And so I always kept that part alive in me, and I started to venture into other things. Like I talked back with the previous parts with the writing and the singing, I wanted to go into other things besides acting. So I kind of strayed away from it until I got into my junior year of high school and I wanted to do a little bit more. And I knew I wanted to be in something acting wise. So I joined show choir because show choir gave me the chance to sing. It also involved a little bit of acting, not as much as I would have liked to back then, but a little bit. And I can remember back even in high school when they had a drama club and we wanted to start up a drama club and we wrote scripts and everything like that. And we wanted to go ahead and act it out. So we were the actors and everything. And that's how I get my alter ego name, which is Hasiel. That came from me being in drama club and acting. That was like my actor's name. So whenever I think about myself sometimes acting, I always call myself Hasiel. It was a previous newscaster that was in Dayton at the time that I loved his name, and I don't know, I wanted to be Hasiel. So that's like my acting name that I came up with at the time. And I I definitely can say that I never considered myself a dramatic person even coming up. But as I like the people that are closest to me will tell you that I have my dramatic moments and different things like that, or that I am more animated sometimes when I get to know people much better. So I think that's a little bit of the acting side of me. But all in all, I am a lower key person when it comes to those things. So I just think that my main drama comes when I hit a stage or when I'm on film or I'm doing something that I'm really enjoying in that moment, whether it be singing or dancing or whatever. That's when those sides of me really do come out. But I knew that in that timing, even in in high school, in my junior year, I wanted to be in something that I could be proud of, that I could present to others, that people could come see or know. That's why I started writing plays. That's why I wanted to act in the plays and do all those things. It was because I was trying to create things that people can just remember in their minds. So I just like to leave something where people can laugh or they can cry or just remember and say, "Oh my gosh, I really enjoyed that." Those are things that bring a smile to my face that make me feel good when I've created something that they do remember. So, just as I said earlier, I remember every performance and song from the past because I was fully engaged and consumed with the artistic expression at the time. And I do believe that's what acting does for me. That's what music does for me. That's what writing does for me. And as I graduated from high school, went on to college, I performed in a couple musicals and I auditioned for a play that I got a role in. And this is where the crossroads kind of meet. And I want to explain the story to you because it's so important and it's a big part of like my acting journey and what is kind of held me back at times from like going full in on pursuing or being a full out actor. But there was a play that was coming. I remember it was called Polaroid Stories, and this was a play that was in my sophomore year. Before I did a musical in my freshman year. Sophomore year I went on, and this is the play I auditioned for, and I got the role. And I do remember this lady, and she I was very heavily in church at that time. I was very involved, and I decided that I did not want to do the play because of how much profanity was in the play. I was like, is this anything my pastor could come and see? Is this anything my parents could come and see? I even went and talked to the pastor about it, and they said, go with your conviction or whatever's going on. So I decided to drop out of the play at the time. And that decision at the time really hurt, because she was like, this can affect, you getting other roles later on. And you auditioned with all these people and you got it and you accepted it. And I don't believe she was upset because I guess they would have to recast or go find somebody else for it. But it taught me a lot in that time about who I was and what I wanted to be as an actor. And even though I don't regret the decision I made, because even when I reread that play, I said, this didn't even connect with anything within me. I just wanted to be in it because I wanted to do something else. It was not a play that I would have just gravitated towards. And sometimes actors do push themselves beyond that to go ahead and do be above and beyond what they, would normally be used to, which is good. But there is also a part of an internal part of you that fights that all the time. And at that time, I made a pivotal decision that I didn't want to do that. And that kind of set the course for what I was going to be as an actor, maybe even later on in my life. And I did not do anything my junior year because I was so devastated with everything that was going on. And I think I couldn't get cast in anything because of how upset this lady, officially they got her out of there, but she was just so mad that I had dropped out, and I knew she wasn't going to let me do anything else. But thank God we got somebody else in there, and I went on to do my final musical in my senior year. But there was something in me that was just such a church kid. And I've always looked at myself as a representative of Christ on the outside. Like when I'm walking around, when I'm being myself, because of my strong, just how I feel inside. That's always how I've looked at how I am, how I carry myself, and just who I feel like I am on the inside. And I know that I am on the inside. It's not even feel, it's who I know I am on the inside of me. And I was just afraid of what that play would do at the time. And I've watched so many of my fellow peers in the long run excel after taking roles that were not like them, but they were committed to success in the field. And I just feel like my decision did kind of affect what I even wanted to do later on, because I went on to do AMTC, which was Actors, Models, and Talents for Christ, because I wanted to keep what was inside of me there. But AMTC did help me to break out of that mold a little bit, because even in the sense of everything, it taught you that you still can go into those places that even if you don't agree with it, or if there's just different things that don't agree with everything that you feel, you can be either a light, you can go in there and be the positive aspect of the things that you see, the negative that you may see in those arenas, you can be that. And I did not know that at the time, even in that play. But like I said, that play didn't really agree with me, but there were different things that I probably could have done even in my junior year. Instead of being discouraged about that setback in my sophomore year, I could have gone ahead and and got into something else. But I always do want to feel connected to my character and connected to my role. So I went on in my senior year to go ahead and be in another play, which was Bat Boy. And I can remember, really engulfing myself in that role, excuse me, and really wanting to be part of something else. And that musical was great for me. I did play a very dark character, which I did take some of my own, I was listening to myself at the time and I was like, I can still do this role. It doesn't have any, there's no profanity. I don't feel like I probably cussed way back in the day in high school, but it's something that's not normal to me. I don't feel comfortable with doing it. If I do it, I might be really, really upset, but I don't just do it on the regular because that's not really me. Like, I don't even sound right doing it. So it's like, why am I trying to make myself do something that I'm not even used to like doing? So it's just not in me. It's like not my vocabulary. So it's only when I'm very, very mad that it might come out or something like that. And it don't sound right when it comes out. So I wanted to make sure that even in this role that I took with Bat Boy, that it felt like me. And even though it was a very dark role, I can remember coming out of that role and because I give myself to every single character that I do. I want to give my full self to the character that I'm playing. And it's an actor's responsibility to make sure that the role that they're taking, that they can fully commit to what is there. And I think that's kind of what's held me back over time, is that I can't always fully commit all of my time to something, so I don't do it. It just makes me back away from it. It makes me not want to do it because I haven't been able to give my full self to it. So in Bat Boy, I was able to give myself to it, and took about a week or two for me to kind of snap out of the darkness of that character. Even though people might think it's funny, I take acting so seriously when I'm really in it, and I think that you have to become this person, and you really do start to take on the attributes and the things of something that you practice and you become. Those are really things that I really do believe that you become when you are acting. So you have to be very careful to what you connect yourself to, and very careful that you protect that real part of you and you don't become what that role required of you over time. And I've seen it happen so many different times. There's so many great examples of just darkness that has come, or just different things, or even playing a character that's really upbeat and you're not even that much of an upbeat person. You might keep some of those attributes from playing a real positive character, and you're not even like that in real life. That is just what acting entails. So I do feel sometimes that we get it twisted with artistry and roles that people take now in Hollywood. I feel like it is all about the money a lot of times, and people aren't genuinely getting these roles because it's something that they're connected to. They're just like, okay, is this for notoriety? Do I just need the money? Or is this just something that people need to see to get butts in the seat? That's how I feel like it's ventured off into now. And I really hope, and I respect the directors and the artists and the people that are out here, that the actors that really take this seriously and say, I'm in this role because I feel like that I can bring something to this character that can change the world, that can change how people look at this person, or give a different outlook on what this character might be. I found myself sometimes watching people act in roles. I remember watching a movie, I think it was called Love and Death, that came on HBO Max. If you haven't seen it, it was about a lady that cheats on her husband. She was in the church and she cheated on her, husband. They had this affair. It's the Candy story. Basically, her name was Candy, and there was a story. This came on Hulu also, but I watched the one with Elizabeth Olsen, and I found myself sometimes looking in Elizabeth Olsen, where she was the bad, like she was the one that was cutting up, and I'm up here feeling sorry for her in the movie. Like, girl, you act somebody to death 42 times, and I'm up here having a heart for some of the stuff that you did. And I'm like, but that's how you can tell when somebody can truly act, is if they can make you see a total different aspect of a character and actually make you kind of side with the bad. And that is what acting is about. It's like giving you all of those emotions, all of those feelings, all of those things that you want to feel on the inside. And that's what I love to see, when I can make somebody laugh from even a skit that I might put up on like YouTube or put it on Instagram or something like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, that person laughed, or they came up to me like while I was in the, I'm flying around with different people. They're like, oh my God, I love when you do the skits. Those are the best, because I had a time, I was just watching them all and laughing. And that makes a difference, because somebody could have been the most down on themselves, or they could have been having a really bad day, and then they see something that affects them, or even while you're giving something that's inspirational, it can make them want to move forward and do more in their, with themselves, with their lives, and different things like that, with just you imparting your gift into the world. And that's so very important. I just hope that people don't lose their artistry when they're out here in these streets. Like, it's so easy to lose it and to get so caught up in the limelight and the fame and everything like that. And I think that's why I might be preserved for this time, is just preserving this inner me that I always have had. I do want to get out, and I do want to show the world so much more of what I have. But sometimes it's very hard, because I don't want to lose that, almost that innocence of just walking into all of that's out here, because you can get so caught up in all of that. And I just want to keep it how I think of it now, like as acting as fun, and just a thing of just expression, and giving yourself to something that's more than what you could give of your regular self. And that's kind of how I look at it. So I am so committed to still pursue acting, and it's never too late. But I know who I am now, and I know how I want to see myself as an actor. I realize that I can choose roles that are outside of my comfort zone, and I can also push myself to create and participate in things that bring a sense of happiness, joy, knowledge, and inspiration to past and future generations. And that's really how I look at it. And it just amazes me today that we have these cameras and these phones that we walk around with every single day, and they're at our fingertips. And sometimes I look at myself and I say, oh my God, life has gotten so busy. Work has gotten so busy. And I can't even take time to create a skit or do anything or come up with any ideas that I can film. And I just think about that today, and I'm like, man, the days that I wanted a camcorder so bad to do all these things. Now I have it here, but now life has taken over. I wonder sometimes, like, if I was a child and if I had a phone in my hand back then, what life would have looked like, and what I would have created, and what I would have been able to look back on now. Now I can go back to tapes and listen to what I did, but it would be interesting to see what I could have created at that time. But it's never too late to continue doing that now, because one day we'll be talking about another device that's going to be out that's even more than this camera. And so take advantage of the camera now, and that's what I try to tell myself to do. But I can't allow those setbacks sometimes, or you can't even allow those setbacks sometimes, to keep you from doing what you love to do and your passion to do and what you really feel called to do. You can't allow life to get in the way of that. So that's why I force myself sometimes to get on there and just do anything. And TikTok has kind of made me a little bit lazy, because I used to do full out things in landscape form and not just the portrait standing up form. I used to just do things like movies. I'm going to still get back to that. I'm making a promise to myself on this podcast today that I'm going to get back to doing those videos that I used to do, that felt like more like original. TikTok kind of gives you a remix of something and allows you to do things or use different voices or music or songs. But I want to get back to my original ideas, so I don't get lazy with thinking and creating and inspiring and just keeping people on their toes when it comes to being creative and not just recycling and repeating things. We've gotten so used to that right now that that's a mold of acting that now we have to break out of, because we've seen things. We're seeing repurposing everywhere. They're doing that. Now, that's what one of my friends said. Go ahead and repurpose your material, which I don't mind doing it with the things that I've come up with and the originals that I've come up with. But when it comes to like other people's ideas and we're just remixing it or doing part 2s and part 3s and part 4s of movies that we've already seen, like, where's the originality? Where are the new things that we need to see so that people can keep creating and keep coming up with new ways of thinking of things? So to this day, I do pray that in the near future, a team of hungry people will surround me, and and we can create a masterpiece together. Those people that have the imagination and the drive to create things for our present time, as well as tell stories that educate and inspire people and inspire dreamers around the world, the lives of the dreamers, the lives of the people that are wanting to create these things everywhere. I realize that I cannot do everything on my own. I'm not able to do everything on my own. So I'm waiting. I am here. I am open. for those things to come or for me to find those things. I'm open to that. And that's pretty much all I have to say on this third part of my series, which was acting. I want to make sure that you are staying tuned into what's going on. There are so many different apps and everything that are coming along right now. So I want to make sure you're tuned into the apps that are present right now, like Instagram, where you can find me at Deluxe Dave, DeluxeDave. I am on Threads also, but I have not posted anything on there yet because I'm not used to all of these yet. There's a lot of stuff that's out right now. So I'm just going to give you the main ones, which is Instagram. And you can also find me on TikTok at davidj.coleman or find me at Deluxe Dave on TikTok also. Also, make sure you're following Coleman on Purpose. We now have a Coleman on Purpose page on Instagram as well. Just as Coleman on Purpose, just straight out, and also on TikTok at Coleman on Purpose. So you can go directly follow those pages, please, because that's where I'll be putting extra content and extra things up on there that you can follow along and see. And I might even start coming on there and putting a few extra things that I want to say on each one of those different sites. So make sure you are following on each of those platforms. Please do remember that you are unique, you are loved, and you are created for greatness. I will see you on the next part. 4.